depression. I think it might be bipolar. I don't think we always have language for it. And even trying to have language for it sometimes holds you back from sharing. Like, oh, I don't know what it's called, so I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah,
And
and
I think, and so you're in the sense like you and I talking right now in real time, I mean, online, but like
mhm,
there's a connection that's being formed right now that will probably continue as we talk. So in
mhm,
that sense, you go, "Oh, I'm not alone." But then when the conversation's done, we go back to our own mind. We go back to our own habits,
yeah.
and that's a
So
hard
it's
thing to kind of yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to comment on that. I agree
yeah,
with you. That's how I've explained it, where it's like man, you can't read people's minds, but how
yeah,
can you also not use that as a way of feeling stuck?
uh-huh, yeah. No, yeah, it's it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's almost just like a distraction too, because it makes me just feel less like more safe. Like, because when I guess what I was hoping to do is kind of explain like what I've
Yeah.
felt in the last couple of years, because it kind of started over 3 years ago, like really bad, you know. Um, but I think over time, thank God we have social media, because I don't know how the fuck people because like went through this like hundreds of years ago, because you can't think of it like, oh, this is new, right? And I kind of want to delve into that later too,
Yeah,
about
for sure.
like is this a new phenomenon? Like some of the stuff we're experiencing, is this kind of evolving over time because of humans? Their brains are kind of being molded and changed because of technology or whatever. But what I was going to say is this kind of started for me. um, and again, like my thing, I guess I'll say is really bad anxiety, right? That's kind of what like my struggle, right? I have
Anxiety,
had
so
to,
bad
yeah,
anxiety.
just
Okay. Yeah.
really fucking bad. I have had depression, but I haven't naturally been a depressed person. It becomes a result of me going through anxiety, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I started getting anxiety around 16 when I smoked a lot of weed as a young teenager, and then when I was like 16, I was like doing other stuff too, like mixing other drugs, and then um, I think that might have affected it. But I was smoked weed, and then when I was 16, I was about to have a kid, right? Someone I had known just died. So I think back of these things that were occurring, and I think it's relatable. It's necessary to kind of explain the context. But I started getting panic attacks after smoking weed, and it would just take me to this dreamy, hazy, hell like world, and I kind of stopped. And I would still try over the years up into my 20s. I'm 27 now. Um, and I'd smoke here and there, and it'd give me the same result, panic attacks. But it was like I really like smoking weed, so I always thought maybe I can handle like a hit or so.
Mhm.
And I picked up drinking, early teens as well. But again, it was more from smoking weed. I never had it naturally from like people. We just get like I just got to be honest with you, I got a panic attack yesterday. It just kind of came up because it was just kind of things were happening. But anyways, what really happened, like what really started this, you know, me being in the club, I guess, is in 2020 or the end of 2019, December 26th, I think it was. Um, I just had this like heart flutter, like this flutter, like at work, starting my job in the corporate world after college. I had this crazy flutter, kind of freaked me out. Thought I was gonna have a heart attack, die. That night, I told myself when I was laying down, if I have another one, I'm gonna go to the hospital because I don't want my heart to explode or something.
Right.
So I got one. Told my grandma, it's like I don't know what's going on. She tried to calm me down. It's like I gotta go to the hospital. She's like, all right. So I'm driving there, and I'm like so tense, and I started feeling. I remember it was like a rush, like my mind's preparing me for death, right? Even though it's just probably anxiety or just like adrenaline, like anyways, or maybe drinking coffee and other stuff and drinking at the time. So, anyways, it could have been a collection of things. But I remember starting that night, I had a crazy panic attack, and I swear to you, I don't know how to explain it, but the panic attack went on for days
Hmm.
and weeks. And I remember there was months and months and months at a time where I was just my heart was imagine like a long panic attack that just doesn't go away for weeks or months.
Now,
Right.
what was your sleep like though? Because
Oh,
I know what you're talking about, and I'm sure some people listening
mm-hmm.
do, or there's layers to these things, or they know someone who does. But I
Uh-huh.
think when it starts, what was the sleep like? Because that's where it gets to another level of intensity, where it's like if
And
it's
the
messing up the sleep, that makes it worse.
God,
It seems like an obvious thing to say,
yeah.
like but yeah,
No, but it's so funny. It's like you if you take for granted sleep, fuck off. Like, dude, it's it's so crucial because okay, what happened was in the beginning,
yeah, it's just
the first day
spontaneous.
or two, I finally managed to like knock out, and then I woke up and all of a sudden my mind was still in that like losing my fucking brain, like my mind still like this. Um, I started experiencing depersonalization, derealization, which I mentioned to you, and I think
I
there's
didn't know about, guys. I don't know everything, okay? I had to Google it, and you can't trust Google. So,
That's funny. But what's funny is like I didn't know what it was either. And I was like, I'm losing my mind. And
right.
like I felt like a black sheep of the family because for months at a time, for like over a year, this was kind of going on. And I was depressed. I had, crazy I had flutters throughout the year. And it was like the hardest year ever. And then we had COVID, right? So that exacerbated things. And I had a kid that I had to take care of and I still had to work. So anyways, I had to quit that job. And for 3 months I was just kind of bedridden and I didn't like I had weird
How old was
symptoms.
your
Like
kid?
she was probably like 6 or 7.
Oh wow, that's good.
Yeah. And she lived with me and her mom. She'd go back and forth and I would watch her while her mom went to work. And she'd have her own bed in my room. So it was very stressful too, because I was in a home where I was with my grandparents and my dad and my uncle. And there was just a lot of dysfunctionality there and not a lot of support.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah, I kind of want to express some of the symptoms because
Yeah.
that is scary to a lot of people. And when I realized later on what it was, I found this guy online, Jordan Hardgrave, and shout out to that guy because I think what he's doing is great. He's one of those YouTube guys about anxiety, depersonalization, derealization. Um, but when I found that guy months later, it's like, in 2020, mid 2020, I found out, like, oh, wow, this is what I'm experiencing. I'm experiencing dreamy like world, existential fears. I was scared of the sun. Like I was scared of just, it sounds funny, but I realize I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people that might listen to this and be like, oh yeah, I felt that shit too. Constant panic attack like feelings, rushes, um, sleep was not so good. Oh, really bad dreams, like just dark.
So when you weren't sleeping,
Yeah.
did you try to take anything like
Oh,
over-the-counter
sorry. Yeah.
stuff or?
Yeah, you did
No,
ask
it's
me about
okay.
sleep.
You
Sorry.
don't need to be sorry. I was just wanted to get well. Not that that's always a good idea. Like, oh, Tylenol PM every night. It's like,
Yeah.
well, do you have a headache? It's like,
Yeah. I just to give a little background, I've always had a thing against pills because, as you mentioned, with like my mom passed years prior when I was 19.
okay,
My stepdad, who was really close to me, passed when I was 18. So, like, coupled with that and having a kid at a young age, I think that caused some internal subconscious stress. But she was a big pill popper, and then she ended up overdosing on methadone. But yeah,
by the way, sorry, we'll
mhm.
come back to your mom. I just wanted to say,
Okay.
I don't know if this sounds conspiracy theorist, but you've heard of the 27 Club, right?
Oh God, yes,
Dude, but when I
yes.
went through my episode, I was 27.
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
the earlier ones,
yeah.
but with the episode, I turned 27. My episode started right after my oldest nephew was born, which he was born on
Uh,
Halloween
okay.
2012. My birthday is November 13th. I was in the psych hospital in Kansas City, which is the first time I went to a psych hospital on my 27th birthday. Like I
Oh
was there like four
man.
days before. And anyway, 27 was
Yeah.
by far the worst year of my life. I
Oh
mean,
man.
sure, I went through it again 4 years ago, and
Hmm.
it definitely didn't last as
Hmm.
long.
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, and shout out to my church, and I had a lot of friends in my life.
Hmm.
And but anyway, it's just interesting that um sure the stories of 27, like Amy Winehouse, I think she was 27, or
Yeah. 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 Kurt
uh,
Cobain,
yeah, Jimi Hendrix, they're
Jimi
all
Hendrix. Yeah.
27. And I'm like, not that that's like a curse, like, hey, 27 club, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
that it's such a you're so
Superstitious
young.
thing.
Well, yeah, you're so young still, though, right? That's what a
Hmm.
lot of people would tell me, and I'm like, well, when you're struggling every day and you want to die, you don't think
Doesn't matter how
I'm
old you are.
young. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
think
Yeah. You don't.
I'm young. I have a whole future ahead of me. But just to
Yeah.
think that that was for me was 10 years ago. And then how old
Hmm.
are you now?
I'm 27.
You're
So yeah,
27 now.
I just
Okay.
found out about it too on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I looked in the mirror and go, oh shit, I'm 27.
Well, you
But
seem to be doing pretty good then. But anyway,
oh,
I'm
thank you.
not saying that as like a superstition. I'm just saying it's interesting that maybe there is something in. And I honestly think it's worse now. I think the stats are worse now. I think people are having this stuff in their teens more than they did when we were kids.
I agree.
But
I
anyway,
agree.
okay, well, you're 27 now, right? So maybe I should take.
Yeah.
So
No, but here's the thing: we're not celebrities too. So I think 27 Club came out of because it just happened. There's these famous people.
yeah,
Wait a
they
minute,
didn't know
they're
how
all
to deal
dying.
with it. Yeah. Or
But how many people? I think I looked up the stats after I found out about the 27 Club, and I go, okay, well, there's a club about 27. What is the age that people die the most? And I think it said like in the 80s or 90s.
oh
So
right. Well,
I
yeah.
mean, it's like when you think about that, it's like okay, well then that's just a little thing that people push out like, oh, you're 27, oh, you're part of the 27 club.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, if you struggle, you have a hard time
if people
looking
didn't
that
live as
far
long,
ahead. Yeah, right.
sure. If people didn't live as
Yeah.
long as they do now, I guess we should be more scared. Like if the average age was like 40
45.
or like
Yeah, yeah.
40, I'd be like, okay, the 27 club.
Well,
I'd be like, that'd
physical
be a little
health.
scarier.
Yeah, physical health issues are. Sorry, my light is kind of dying. Yeah, guys, I'm in my podcast studio. I gotta adjust the lights. Anyway, so let's go back to your mom. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
want to talk about that a little bit because you're talking about kind of it's all good.
Sleep.
You're talking about what you're going through right
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then a couple years ago, or the
yeah,
thing, and then but when we first met, we kind of connected over
yeah,
whatever you want to share. You don't have to whatever you want to share, but
yeah.
like I do think yeah, how we're raised. I feel like a lot of my mental challenges came from my dad, who
Hmm.
was a rough guy and was
Yeah,
verbally abusive,
yeah,
and I still talking about him. So I guess there's some power there with that. And my mom, on the other hand, is not perfect, but like was the best
yeah.
you could ask for, right? And so it's like,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
dang, does
yeah.
anybody on this planet get two good parents? Like,
It sucks, man. You see a
yeah.
lot of people that seem to have really good parents, two good parents, it's
Well, and
almost
they
like
can still
people like,
struggle. They can still struggle after.
sure, but
Yeah,
you feel
yeah.
like you look at them and you go, yeah, if you have two good parents and they're still together, fuck you guys. Like, I'm jealous. Deep down, I'm like, I look at them and go, good job. That's great for you. But deep down, I'm like, fuck you guys. Like, you have no idea. Like, try to have, like, for me, it was like, I had my mom, my stepdad, who I grew up with, and then they split up, and then I went to live with my grandma. I was with my dad, and he's never really been much of a dad. He's been more like a friend. We'd smoke a lot of weed. I mean, we've done some drugs together. So like, the best influence. But yeah, because of my mom, I never did pills. They scared the shit out of me because I always thought, I'm like, wait a minute, with if you smoke a hit or so, it's like, okay, you can kind of do that and you won't die. With the pill, if you take one, even nowadays, you don't know if that's gonna kill you or have fentanyl in it. You know what I mean? Like,
You mean like if someone offered you a pill at a party kind of thing?
yeah. And
Yeah.
even when I was like saying about the sleep thing, I didn't take anything for sleep. I think it's funny. It's kind of vivid. It's kind of blurry, but I took like valerian root or
Oh,
something.
okay. It's supposed to help with
Yeah,
sleep. Yeah.
yeah, I was taking that. I took melatonin, but I noticed I think that kind of the melatonin kind of gave me scarier dreams, right? That was I mean I still
Melatonin
remember
did
the
really?
dreams. Yeah. And that's
Okay.
not uncommon from what I've heard. Um
I took it before I had my episode. I was taking it pretty
okay.
much every night, just as a side note. But yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You don't know what
Um
people are giving you, is what you were saying, and then also that's
yeah,
kind of what your mom was into.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I never took like Xanax or I never got an like anti-anxiety meds. Even till now I've never I just always thought um I don't because in the beginning I was like, what do I need to do to fix this? Like, and I went to the doctors multiple times. I was like, hey man, check me. I feel like I'm losing my mind. You know, my heart's beating all fucking day. It just won't go away.
Right.
But over time, it was like, I would watch that Jordan Hardgrave his videos, and I saw people on YouTube, and I swear, man, YouTube and forums kind of really helped me feel like I'm not like this anomaly. It's like, okay, there's a lot of people that feel this, right? Um, and I think it's going to become more common as people hear about it more. But it's super common for feeling kind of like dissociated and it's like living in a dream. I remember just feeling all sorts of shit. But it's funny what I was going to say is over time, over a year and a half, and I had moved out in 2020. So I was experiencing this for like 8 months or so. I ended up getting a job and I had really had to fight through some shit, man, because I still had to work. So I had
Mhm.
to drive to like San Diego, do interviews, get computer equipment because I was working from home. So like there was like this, no matter what you go through, you kind of still have to carry on. Like there's this if you have to work and stuff. So I think that in a way helps because you're forced to
Sure.
assimilate yourself back into society and try to be a normal person. Whereas if you stay coddled up in your room all fucking day staring at the wall, it's
Yeah.
a perpetual cycle. It's not
Yeah.
gonna, so I think over the last several years, learning to look at the face of your demons and just walk with them, no matter how bad it hurts, no matter how lack of sleep you get. Because I wasn't sleeping very well for the last several years. I just got my sleep back. Um, not like that long ago. I would say earlier this year, late last year is when I started getting it back. I can now sleep 8 hours. I still struggle with insomnia where I, was thinking shit on my mind and just
Yeah.
freaking out.
I was gonna
But
say, well, I was just
yeah,
saying real quick.
yeah,
I like what you're sharing about the work thing. What I'm
yeah.
hearing you say is that you have, like, in my experience with me, like these episodes completely took me out of everything. Like I couldn't get
Oh,
a job.
yeah.
Well, the first episode, I got a job after I had started sleeping a little bit. I worked at Burger King, and I was the only like fully English speaking person working there. So, and
uh,
I'm sure all of the uh, it was like, and it was like all girls too. I was like the only guy. Anyway, so I was functioning
Have you
as
heard the Burger King song
oh,
on YouTube?
probably.
Oh,
Oh,
you got to look that up if you haven't.
but like,
I'll
no,
send it to you.
the point is, um, yeah, man, when I had that really bad episode, I did get a job at McDonald's a couple weeks before I had my. I was so miserable that I was like, "Ah, I got to get a job, you know.
Hmm.
And I think that that comes from that was something in me that wanted to live and wanted to get through it. But it was hard, and I think to try to have compassion and not be harsh with people, but the system kind of can make people where it's like they can't do anything, right? It's like, hey, get on Social Security, which I had SSI for 5 years almost, right? And I luckily was doing good when I had it. It helped me move to Pomona, helped me to Mount Sac for a while. I mean, it helped me do a lot of things. And then eventually I
Hmm.
was like, yeah, I need to get a job.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
just ride the bus all day every day and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. And so there was this. It's hard to. So I would say it's like kind of like the definition of something being really tough is where you feel like you can't work. It takes you so out of any kind of rhythm,
Hmm.
and that's a real thing for people. But man, it's like if you can just do something while you're in it, like you're saying. So I just wanted to comment on that. I think
Yeah.
you're onto something with that. Not we're not trying to oversimplify it. Like, hey, you struggle, just go get a job.
Right.
But
There's no formula for this shit too, which is tough in the beginning when you're
right.
first going through things.
But doing
Who
nothing
doesn't?
isn't
Yeah.
good. Doing nothing is
Right. I would
not
say who
nothing, but like yeah.
I think everybody wants just like a simple thing. Give me this and I'm out of it.
Well,
But it doesn't work like
responsibility,
that.
the responsibility, like even if it's like, hey, go get the mail every day, or like, hey, go take out the trash when it's full. Even if
Yeah.
it's something like that, you feel better that you
Yeah.
did something, and instead of, hey, what did you do today? And you're like, I don't know, I binge watched, you know, Jack Ryan season 4 or something, right? And you're just like,
Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
that's cool. Maybe you should do that at night, at the end of a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So you're
One
working a job and you're having these panic
yeah.
attacks, right? And it's
Yeah,
like,
and
yeah,
this was 2020 and I
right.
and so I got through that year and I ended up moving out because I was stressed with like DPDR, anxiety. I was also very depressed too. Like I remember I again, I've always kind of been more of a optimistic, positive person. So I've never actually really suffered from depression. Like, I mean, I've used to drink and I would kind of wallow in like self pity about shit.
Well, anxiety and depression are connected, just which you probably know this, but it's not
I have heard that. I mean, for
reciprocal.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me though, it's like there's some people that just naturally depressed, they have anxiety. Or for me, depression comes from like when I get really bad anxiety and get through like like when I go through a breakdown, I get depressed. It's just like the
Yeah.
chemical thing for me specifically, right?
So
And I'm sure
when
other
you're,
people do
oh, I
too.
was gonna say, yeah. So when you're saying anxious though too, is it kind of like, because I relate to this, and I think a lot of
Hmm.
people, it's like the anxiety is about. Okay, so also part of this conversation is like, what's the difference between anxiety and responsibility, right? Because I think sometimes responsibilities that we have, though, that can get conflated sometimes, and that can get maybe overemphasized. Now, for some people,
Yeah.
it's underemphasized because it's also like in the choice category. Like, hey, you're supposed to do 5 things today that are all like life things that you need to do, like
Uh-huh.
go do laundry, like go to the DMV, right? And
Mhm.
yeah, how many times do we wake up and we go, yeah, F that, I don't want to do that today. I'd rather go see Mission Impossible 7, or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do the movie after you do those things, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes anxiety, it's real in the sense that like what you're worried about is something that you need to take care of, and that's part of being a human, and it's a very
Oh, I get
important
what you're
part of
saying.
being human. But then where it gets to be more anxiety mode is where then it kind of bubbles over or carries over or overlaps, kind of like the rings, the Olympic rings, that area in the middle, like the
Hmm.
overlap zone. And
Sure.
that's where it can be like, okay, well, now you're not worrying about responsibilities. Now you're just kind of worrying about everything. Is,
Oh,
is
I
that
want
is that
to.
does that make sense?
It
Yeah.
does make sense. And what I want to add to that is to differentiate the way I would put it is this so people can understand or just my opinion on it
Sure.
so I
Yeah. Of
can
course.
because right in the reality I think everybody gets anxious, everybody gets anxiety and there's kind of like a spectrum maybe, right? For me though, I imagine like this, you have a cup of water and it fills up during the day, we have stuff to do and that water to me is like the stress, right? Like, and we have this cup, right? We're all like in our mind, we have like a amount of space and an amount of water that we can keep in it, and it fluctuates up and down. And when people are really normal people without like, I guess, high levels of anxiety, they can kind of keep it in the cup and it'll kind of raise to the top and it'll maybe come back down. They'll take care of their shit. Maybe they're stressed, anxious. But to me, the way I look at anxiety, like what I have or what I felt in relation to priorities is no matter what I have to do, my cup is overflowing and it's like the water is coming out constantly all the time. And I have responsibilities and it just makes that like bubble, like
Yeah.
top of the water coming out. So
Yeah.
to me, I think that's a real distinction between people. Like even when I listen to like podcasts, like Joe Rogan talk to people and they talk about, oh man, anxiety's real. Or like, yeah, I'm feeling anxiety. I'm like, there's a difference between like a normal people getting like, oh man, I gotta do this shit today, or oh man, I'm worried about this thing. And then there's the anxiety where it's like, I'm having a panic attack because maybe for no reason, right? And
Yeah.
I already have things I got to do, but this panic attack is like an added, like my brain doesn't know how to separate. Okay, you're just stressed. You need to take care of this, this, and this. You know, whereas what I would feel in the last couple of years is like it's just like
Yeah.
everything is such a like overwhelming at times, right? And
Right.
it fluctuates, right? There's times where it's like, okay, I can kind of keep this under control, but especially having my kid, taking care of her, make sure she's doing her stuff, and my girlfriend, and my priorities with my ventures and stuff. It's just like it's interesting because I think people need to understand there's a difference between like, oh yeah, man, I'm getting anxiety today because of my chore list or what I got to do, and then there's the other side where it's like, dude, I'm losing my mind and I still have this other shit that I actually got to worry about. But what I was gonna
Yeah.
say is
Yeah.
that throughout the last couple of years, I've had to you just got to keep fighting on, right? And there was a time where it was getting better over after a year and a half. So in 2021, middle 2021, when I moved out, things started to kind of settle a little bit. I started feeling a little more like, okay, I'm starting to get in touch with reality again. It's not just a dreamy haze, DPDR, depression. It was like I forced myself to go on to exercise, to read, to play games, to watch certain shows, to do things that gave me comfort. But then in 2022, um, when did we? Oh, that was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2020.
Okay.
I was gonna
So
say,
in
or I was gonna say, just to comment on what you're
yeah,
saying, because I
yeah.
agree with you, and I'm just
Uh-huh.
as part of this is
Hmm.
going back and forth a little bit because I I would say what you're talking about is like, so there's like stuff going on in your mind
Uh-huh.
and then your body, and I think we always want to like kind of maybe separate it naturally because it's very complex to think that they're connected. And so what you're kind of saying is that, see, some of this stuff is in it is in your thoughts, that as we started this conversation with saying like,
Hmm.
oh, well, not everybody sees that, right? But
Sure.
panic attack stuff, and um it's not a very doctory word, panic attack stuff, but we're talking about things that you're experiencing in your body. And when it
Yeah.
gets into your body, there is a connection with the mind and the body
Oh
and your
yeah.
spirit and the spiritual. It's all connected, but it's harder to, like what you're talking about, where you're like, oh, I just keep going to work. I keep taking care of my kid. We all have our list, right? I keep showing up to things.
Yeah.
Even if your circle is small, you still have a circle, right? Like,
Right.
even if
Yeah.
you're like, you see the same two people every day, it's like, well, better than seeing no one, or whatever, right? You're like,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of life.
Being alone is horrible
Well,
too.
and
That's
it's part of even the matrix, which is like life is doing the same thing every day gets perceived as being boring. Gets like, and we want excitement. We want things to be, novel and new.
especially
And
our generation.
yeah, we have a hard time with, like you were saying, how do people deal with this in the old days? I've talked about this with my
Yeah.
sister probably more than anyone. Like, yeah, you were depressed while you worked the fields. Not, no offense to the agri. That's how our world was. That's how it
No,
started.
yeah.
You
there
know,
was
like,
no like, oh, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? It's like,
I'm
no, we're
anxious.
just trying
Okay,
to
sway the hay over your head.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
no, but I was just saying that adding to like you're talking about both things. You're saying these things are living in my mind, and there's real responsibilities with that I'm inclined to not want to do. But the reason why we don't want to do it is that we start feeling these things in our bodies, and our body makes us really not want to do it. Like the actual feeling of panic and discomfort in your nervous system, and your like anxiety
Hmm.
is very connected to adrenaline.
Hmm.
Like that is really hard to, that's a real uncomfortable thing. And it's
Hmm.
like what I hear you saying is that you're learning how to like be uncomfortable.
Yeah, man. And I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Sorry, I just
The
wanted to say
last
that you keep
no,
it.
that's
Yeah.
great. No, thank you for commenting. This is good because, you know, another big reason I like to talk to people, especially such as yourself, is getting another perspective and something where I go, oh, okay, I never thought about it like that, or oh yeah, that's true. Because it's all learning, right? Um, but yeah, in 2022, in March 2022, I at the time I was getting panic attacks again, and they would come and go, and I was just kind of dealing with it. Life was going on, but I was still suffering. Looking on YouTube, going on Facebook, in forum circles, hearing everyone else's shit that they're going through, and it was just like so. Still in the rut, still hoping. Oh man, okay, this is gonna go away someday. You know, there's people that get through this. And I'm
Like
gonna be the one that,
anxiety, like
yeah,
anxiety
anxiety,
groups, like on Reddit or
anxiety,
Facebook.
yeah,
Or
DPD, yeah,
Reddit
Facebook
can be pretty
too,
rough, but
Reddit. Oh my God,
I've been on
we'll get
bipolar
we'll
groups
get
and
to that.
Reddit is anyway. Yeah, yeah.
I've heard stories of kids like saying they were like a kid when they started feeling the shit. And
Oh, yeah. Well, that's more common
I,
in the last, 5 years. You know,
man,
but
um, but I was just
unfortunately,
gonna,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say the last part of this is, 2022, St. Patrick's Day, the luckiest day of the year. I
Okay.
had another mental breakdown, and it was a lot different than any anxiety I ever experienced. And I thought I was going to literally, like, I was going to lose my mind. I was like, it was a different sensation, different feeling. I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like, imagine like Jigsaw from the movie Saw is in your brain, and he's like going, he has like razor blades, and he's just kind of like cutting shit, and he's playing with your head, and he's poking it with needles. Like I felt like mental pain. It's hard to explain, but like I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't sleep for months. And at night when I tried to sleep, I felt like, swear to God, like my amygdala was burning. Like I could feel it like on
Hmm.
fire. And I couldn't sleep for months. I was scared of reality. I was scared of living. I didn't have any of this panic attack here. That literally, the cardiophobia, the panic attacks, that went away. It was just tingling in my arms. My brain was on fire. I almost lost feeling in my whole body. Like I would take a shower and I couldn't really feel like anything below my torso. And I couldn't work. I couldn't think. I couldn't sleep. I didn't eat. Um, I took a video of myself and posted on YouTube. I was so desperate because I'd never felt this before, and I wanted to know if anyone else experienced this. So I posted a video on YouTube. I was like, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling. I don't understand if this is anxiety or if I'm literally psychotic now, or like I was like, I want to blow my fucking brains out." Like,
You said that in
but
the
it
video?
turns out, say what?
You say that in the video, that actual line?
Well, not that, but like I mentioned, like, dude, like this is horrible. It was worse than any experience
Well,
of
yeah, I feel like if
anxiety.
you were to say that your video could get flagged for some kind of
Oh,
community
well,
rules or
I
safety,
didn't.
people could think you're really being serious,
Uh,
which is
that's true.
logical. But you didn't say
I
that?
No, I don't know. And I took it down too because I kind of got embarrassed after months because I started. I found like, okay, this is probably just anxiety. Like this
What
is
did
just a
people
really
say? Did people comment
well.
on it?
I got
Oh,
like people on YouTube. Like I would look at videos all day, and I would like be sitting in a corner on the couch in my apartment. My girlfriend would go to school or work, and my daughter would go to school.
yeah.
And I would just sit there all day kind of in this rut, and I just didn't know what was going on. So I'd go on YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, and I just comment. I'd look at videos like anxiety, crazy feelings, and I'd look at comments, and people would tell me this, and I'd be like, oh, okay, this guy's starting to feel, seems like these people are feeling what I'm feeling. And then it turns out, like, I over the last year, over the last year and a half or so, like I found that, okay, it's just anxiety. Like it's just like, I guess, another level where I was like, wow, I thought I reached, you know, the fucking apex level of what anxiety can do to me, but I guess I was wrong. And so that's what I've been going through the last over a year and year and a half,
Okay.
since last March, since March 2022. And even when we went to that program, I was still feeling like this, but it was more like like I was telling you, like, you just got to carry on. Like, I wasn't going to give up. And there was times where I'm like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. But it's like I'm too much. I'm too like I want to live. And I have things I want to do. And so again, I've always been like optimistic, and I'm going to get through this. And I got to say, it's gotten better, and it just took a lot of time, like, and like talking to people online, and talking with family, getting out in the world, and like just kind of facing your fucking demons like head on, like looking at death in the face and saying, like, if this is my time, this is my time, but I'm going to continue to go to work. I'm going to
Yeah.
continue to do this. I'm going to continue to, whatever the fucking purpose of my life is, I'm going to continue to try to follow that and strive towards that.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, like, I
Yeah.
think, no, I appreciate you sharing, man, and I'm
Yeah.
encouraged. I think you're using um, similar language that I know I've said over the years, or people have said
Hmm.
to me, and
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
sometimes I think, you know, the compliment sometimes is more, feels more of a compliment and less of a reality, because I think I still struggle, right? So it's like when people say, "Oh, you have a podcast," or "Oh, you do stuff with Nami," and "Oh, it's like it sometimes makes me think I'm like better than I really am, but also I probably am. I probably am in a better place than I have been in the past, and not to try to be too hard on myself, but I think
Yeah.
sometimes this language of, depending on what kind of faith you are, kind of sometimes what we do, we do try to get better. Now, I would say some people might be in a category where they don't try to get better, and that's kind of something to be curious about. And then maybe we want to try to be like, wait, well, why don't you want to get better? I don't understand. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
you like being anxious all the time? And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
sometimes there some of that's actually true. Like, I think if you're struggling all the time, you get a lot of attention from people. If you're doing
Yeah.
good, people don't check in on you as much, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I think
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a real thing, but
Oh, you think that's part of it? Like, some people just kind of like the attention. Like, I just
well,
kind of want to feel taken care of, like,
I
in
think
in
that
a way.
yeah, I
That could
think
be
that
part of
that
it.
can be true, and I don't mean to oversimplify it.
Right. And
I
this is
think
not everyone. Yeah.
well, I think what we're talking about too is that loneliness is a real part of this. And
Uh-huh.
I know that I've gotten really close to people in really hard times.
For
And I'm
sure.
still close to
Absolutely.
some of those people, right? Like my
Hmm.
sister and I had my sister on my podcast, and I was saying that I talk to her probably almost every day. I mean, and my brother-in-law too. But I called my sister probably every day, and there was never a time in my life, since we've been adults, where I've talked to
Hmm.
my sister every day. It's like,
And there's nothing wrong with that though, too,
yeah,
because I
for sure.
mean, you do what you got to do to
Well, and
somewhat
I don't mean that
survive.
in negative, like you want attention, something's wrong with you. I just mean that
Uh,
you do get a lot of attention, and maybe
yeah.
you don't want to get better. Like, maybe
Mm,
you actually like what that does to you. You get a certain response from society. Now, that's not everybody's experience, because sometimes
hmm.
people feel rejected over and over again.
Hmm.
They're trying to go through a system that doesn't always help people. And it's like, what are you going back to, right? Like, if you're in the
Hmm.
hospital, it's like, do you have a place to go back to that you like? And some
Yeah.
people's answer is no. Their
Mm,
answer is the hospital is the best place I've been in 3 months.
yeah.
So anyway, not to go
Yeah.
off too much on that, but it sounds like you're. What I was gonna say, I think this the spiritual influence to this is that healing means like getting better means that we don't really have any suffering, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the goal, I think people get disappointed in that because healing can, I don't know, I guess it's more just a conversation point. Like, does healing mean that you've had all these panic attacks, right? So does you being healed, does Isaiah being healed? Side note, your last name is like Aragorn, Lord of
I
the
know.
Rings.
You did the whole deal thing. Like I've been hearing that since I was
Okay, anyway, sorry
fucking
guys,
a
I
kid.
love Lord of the Rings.
No,
Um,
it's all I love it
no,
too.
but does that make sense? So it's like healing means you don't take meds anymore. Healing,
Um,
healing means a good night's sleep pretty much every night. And I think a lot of people
it's a good question.
could push for that because that's
Hmm.
like if there is no perfect's not the right word because we're human and we're in a effed up world that seems to be getting more and more screwed up when it comes to chemicals that we're breathing and things we're putting in our body, which is also a choice, but whatever. So
That's
you know what I mean? Like you're doing better, but you're still having a certain level of anxiety while you're doing
that's an
it. And same with
interesting
me.
thing.
So I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
think about that?
dude. That's I've never really thought about that until like right now. Like, what is healing? What do I expect? What is my, or again, what we learned in our leadership? What is your vision? Like, I guess this can go into another topic. That can even be a book. Like, what does healing mean? Right? That would be the title. What does healing mean or being healed mean for mental illness? Right? And I think, there's a lot of questions to go with that. But I think first off, definitely being at a less what do you call it, fight or flight mode all the time, right? Like your body should theoretically, I would think, we need to, when we are in a safe mode, like right now I'm at the park, I'm safe, I should feel safe. If something comes out that's dangerous, like a pack of wolves or something, then I should be fearful. I should be like fight or flight, right?
Did you say a
Right.
wolf?
Yeah, wolves. All right, let's spit. Okay,
No, no,
coyotes.
no.
All
I'm
right.
following you. Sorry, I was just laughing.
Yeah.
I was just trying to imagine a wolf jumping out at you and like
How
in the
about I
middle of
say,
the
how about
park.
this? If you're a
It's
Game of Thrones
possible.
fan, what if I say dragon? Is that better?
Oh shoot, I'm really behind. I
Okay,
haven't really seen that show very much, but
oh,
okay, I know what a
but
dragon is though. I did
oh,
watch
there you go.
Dragonheart back in the day in the
Oh, that's an
'90s.
old one.
That's
That's
old.
old.
So
But my point is like, yeah, I guess the reality is people that feel really bad mental illness, like bipolar specifically, you don't want to have to feel up and then down the next day. Like you want to be
yeah.
able to kind of be
Well,
like
your body's
normal
in a
is
yeah. You're in a threat mode. That's what the fight or flight is. It's like
right, right.
there's a
I'm just
threat,
saying,
which is like a human instinct, but then it's like
right.
to stay in that where you're like a lion might come and attack me. It's like, well, that did a lot of good in like the hunting and gathering time.
Right, right,
Hey, what about now? Yeah, anyway.
right.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
No, but that's kind of what I'm saying is like we shouldn't feel I shouldn't get a random panic attack if you know or I because this is interesting because at the same time I also think well maybe this is just part of like my psychology, my chemistry, my brain. Maybe I'm just oversensitive at certain situations. Like yesterday, I was kind of overstimulated and then I went on this ride with my friend to go pick up a car and I felt like a rush. Like I was like, oh fuck. But I kept my cool. Like I've learned to just kind of accept it. Like if I'm gonna die, I'm literally that's how I look at it. Like, I'm gonna die, I'm fucking die. But I've learned to just
That's how you feel. Like you feel like you might
that's
die, but you're
yeah, because you
not.
get the breathing and you're like, fuck.
Well, the
And then I just go fuck it.
the
And it really
breathing is
helps.
really important. I have a lot of friends that have
Yeah.
come. Anyway, shout out to my
Yeah.
book club brothers because this comes up a lot, and I don't
Yeah.
practice it very often, and I should learn how to breathe better. But yeah, does that help
Well,
you? Do you try to do deep breathing and nose breathing?
I've done everything in terms of like trying to like holistic like meditation, journaling,
Right.
exercise. I tend to do a lot more exercising recently, and I notice when I stay busy and yeah, I don't know, man. Over time, I think and one thing that freaked me out when I first met you is that you mentioned you went through like a mental breakdown and then it happened again, and then you've had a couple, and I thought to myself like, fuck, man, am I gonna go this way? Am I gonna have it like every 5 years or something? And I was like,
Is
but
there a
like,
guarantee that it won't happen again?
yeah, man, and that's the thing where you think,
Probably not.
well, yeah, and it's if you're susceptible to
I mean,
having one, well,
that
if you're
might sound really
susceptible,
negative. It's like, as long as I'm
well, I
in
think
this small
realistic,
and jacked up
be
world, maybe. But yeah.
yeah, you got. I
Well,
guess you'd, yeah,
okay. I mean, there's a lot of conversations here because the reason why people don't think it will happen again is based on what they do to cope.
sure,
So a lot of times,
or just the present moment seems fine
yeah, a lot of
at the
times
time.
when you get on medication, what the medical world is not good at, and I'm not really a testimony to this because I'm still on meds.
Hmm.
I don't mean that in like a F the empire way. I
No,
mean
I think,
a
and
little bit, but yeah,
I'll say this for your viewers. I think Jared, to everyone, is not like, I think there's people that take pills and they're okay. This is just me. I'm take pills, continue my day. I think from what I sound, it seems like you're trying to
yeah,
understand. Okay, I think you're very conscious of what you're doing with yourself, or you're trying to figure out,
for
and you're
sure.
not just like, give me a pill. Okay, let me just continue my day. I think you're very conscious of like, okay, should I be on this? Should I not?
Yeah.
Am I taking too much? Like, I think you're very conscious about that choice. But yeah, go on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, well, okay. I mean, it is complicated because what part of the it not happening again can be the idea that um, there's a certain level of acceptance behind these things. And the
Hmm.
reason why people don't get help, and then this kind of crosses over into recovery language,
Hmm.
which is like, hey, the first step is admit that you're powerless, your life has become unmanageable. Okay. Now, could that
That's
apply to anxiety and depression and not substance abuse or sex addiction or all these things? I think it can because I've been to the hospital. God, by the grace of God, I haven't been in 3 years, but
hmm.
I've heard people's stories where they're like, "Oh yeah, this is like my 37th time here."
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
not
yeah.
at this
Oh,
specific hospital, but a hospital. Right?
you're like, oh, I wish you didn't tell me
Really,
that.
yeah, exactly. 37 times. Like, do you have a T-shirt with that on it in the back, or what? And maybe their
It's like an
attitude.
award. Oh, this guy's
Yeah.
been 37. Here's an award.
Well,
37 years.
I think that you could be positive about that. And I mean, I remember one time I had this telecare interview. This is like 10 years ago. And the
Hmm.
lady was like, "Oh, yeah, I had like 19 suicide attempts and I went in and out of the hospital and like, and I don't remember how long that was spread out,
Hmm.
but something
Hmm.
like that, um, high number." And I'm like, "Well, dang, I only had 3 attempts in 1 year, or
You're like,
whatever."
I gotta boost my
So,
numbers if I
yeah,
want to catch up with her.
I gotta get another booster and boost my numbers. No, but it's like so everybody's path is can be pain and suffering, but it seems to be like, yeah, I don't know if a lot of people think healing is possible in the sense where could healing mean that you do get off of medication eventually, and if
Hmm.
medication is a thing that you need, a lot of psychiatrists like Peter, this guy named Peter Bregan, who's like a Harvard MD guy. This guy named Alan Francis. I listened to it on Audible. It's called like Saving Normal. It's just a book about like people are getting overdiagnosed and over medicated and blah blah blah. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah, yeah,
stuff that
yeah,
doesn't
yeah, yeah.
even seem to be super like profound anymore. It's like, yeah, duh,
Yeah.
But could it be possible that And I don't know. I'd want to lean towards what keeps things interesting. To the compliment you just made to me is
Hmm.
to not give up on trying to understand kind of what's going on, right? Not just
Hmm.
kind of, but the reason why it's complicated is because I think that the survival mode with these things is very, very strong.
Hmm.
We do whatever we got to do to stay alive. And a lot of times the means to that can be unhealthy things. It can be
Sure.
unhealthy ideas. And so it's not so much about learning. Like some people would be like, well, you just need to go learn everything there is about bipolar. And it's like, what do you
Good
mean
point.
from, yeah, from the internet? You
Because,
know, like
well, yeah,
from Google, like F that. There's tons of from
yeah.
WebMD.
There's things that I've seen where I wish I didn't see or like hear. Like
Well, right.
you
It's
don't
not,
want to know everything.
I'm
You
quoting,
can't. You can't know everything.
yeah, I'm quoting Richard Rohr, who says, like, it's not really learning, it's unlearning, which I'm sure he's getting that from philosophers too. Like you learn
Hmm.
things, but you also have to unlearn things, right? And
Right.
that's the part. Yeah, yeah.
Like
So
your fight or flight freeze all the time. Like
well,
you got to unlearn that. You don't
well,
need to
right.
be doing
So
that constantly.
back, yeah, well, back to your experience, right? So you're saying, which I relate to this, and I'm sure some people do, and maybe some people don't, or you're in like maybe a support role position where you see someone going through the panic thing and the feeling that you might die to some to a person who's never experienced that they could be like, well, that's an exaggeration.
Sure. I just want to make a note on that.
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
my symptom is more
right.
like in my head, like when I freak out, it's like this feeling, this
Okay.
in my head. It's like I'm losing my mind feeling. It's not like a I get those panic attacks rarely now, and honestly, people are gonna think this is strange, but I actually miss those panic attacks, and I when those happen, I actually welcome them in a way because it reminds me of what the normal anxiety I used to feel like. And it's very strange uh, way of seeing it, but I like when I get a panic attack now. Like I said, I'm more accepting of it because I'm like, oh, cool. That's the normal anxiety I used to get. That's the one that I see on YouTube that everyone's like, panic attack, heart racing, palm sweaty. I'm like, yeah, I miss that shit. The one I get now is like, I want to fucking blow my brains out. Like, and
Hmm.
it's not, and it comes in waves, and it's pretty constant at times. But again, it's not as intense as it was. But yeah, in terms of healing, I guess it would be like I am healing, I think, and I think you are healing, and I think you know as you keep going, I think accepting that some people are just going to. It sucks, man. I mean, when you think about spirituality and God, it's like either like we were saying, either this is for a reason or it's not, and you've just been given a bad hand. And I think with religion, with God, with spirituality, I think it gives you more hope, and it honestly probably helps people because it gives them the hope that hey, there's a reason for this, there's an end to this suffering, and there's meaning behind it. Whereas someone
Hmm.
like me that's kind of in the middle, I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like to me, it sounds like if there is a God, like okay, well, what is the reason I am getting this?
Well,
Um,
yeah, I would say
so.
to comment on that, like, because I just the language with that, the
Mhm.
way I would say it now, I think that there's layers.
Uh-huh.
Well, the idea that I think sometimes we think suffering is the only way that we learn, right? Like just in the history of humanity, pain and suffering is how people learn things.
Sure, one way,
It's
yeah,
not the only way. And I think when
right.
you do struggle, um, you can maybe adapt this kind of thing that's like, yeah, it's sort of a sharp either use this as a way to learn something, which is kind of to what you were just saying, like,
Hmm.
is there meaning in this? And is
Yeah,
that a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
choice, or is that just an inevitable fate of the
Evolution of
cosmos?
man, of
Yeah,
the
or
brain. Yeah.
this fourth turning is here book I'm reading from my book club is this the guy is not necessarily a Christian guy. I mean, he might be,
Oh.
and
Hmm.
he's using religion and Reformation as an example
Hmm.
of events and the Great. I mean, there's historical things you read in the history books about religion, right, and church,
Hmm.
and Christianity,
Hmm.
all these other things. But yeah, is there meaning in the suffering, and is that a choice? Because it's like if you go the other direction, and like you're saying, even when you say you're dealt a bad hand,
Hmm.
that can sound to some people who are, not that this is bad, but um, someone in like the personal development space, right? Like a Tony Robbins kind of guy, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
stuff
yeah,
that
yeah.
you scroll through on Instagram, where once you scroll through one, you scroll through 30 motivational videos. And
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot of things in there that's like, yeah, I think that's true. That sounds like I
Hmm.
don't want to do that, but that's
Yeah,
true. Like,
yeah.
and so sometimes it's in the healing space, the language is like total responsibility, like 100%, 120%. Jesus's words in the Gospels are pretty like, yeah, dude, lose your life to find it. Like pick
Mm.
up your cross, or either follow me or go do your own thing.
Hmm.
There's no like, yeah, I don't know, I'm kind of in, I don't know, maybe a little bit. The people who are like in the middle seem to not be remembered, right?
Hmm.
The people who do stuff are the ones who are like 100% in.
Hmm.
So
Sure.
sometimes this language is like, it's either all suffering and it's going towards something, or I am a victim of like my circumstance. And if you
Hmm.
go to like a self-development seminar, I mean, not that I haven't done that stuff, and I'm not saying don't do that. You're gonna probably
Mm.
hear someone say, "You're not a victim. Like, take control of your fucking
Yeah,
life, man.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
take your shirt off right now, man, and choke in
David
the water.
Goggins.
Fuck, yeah."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
probably
yeah,
gonna feel really good for like 2 days, and then you're
yeah.
gonna come home and you're gonna go, "Wow, I have to
Nothing's
undo.
changed.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah,
undo 20 years of me
yeah,
being a piece of shit to myself."
yeah.
You know,
Real
in
quick,
my
I
head.
just want to mention my
Yeah.
my battery's about to die,
Oh shoot, really?
so we might have to. Yeah, we might have to cut this out. If you're down for a part two some other time,
I would love that. Well, we've been
or
talking for um almost an
and it,
hour, I think almost
and
an hour. Like put a
and it's
time.
funny because I wanted to get into that and behind Christianity meaning and like, or is this just evolution? Our brains are like this the era we're in is we're a product of the era of too much technology and
Yeah, well, that's
distractions
affecting
and
us for sure. Yeah, yeah. And even the
but I
stuff
really want to get into that.
yeah, and even the stuff I'm saying about the responsibility, I think a lot of that's healthy, right? I'm not
Sure.
saying that a hundred
Yeah.
percent of it is just like disregard your pain, but we seem to have
Yeah.
these extremes where it's like, I'm either everything, God works everything together for good, and it's like, yeah, but you still, there's real like, you got to make
Gray
amends
areas.
to people, you got to forgive. There's like a
Hmm.
lot of things you got to do to get
Hmm.
it right when you go through hard things. It's not as easy
Hmm.
as just. But I do think your story and my story and people I've had on here and people I've met in real life, like I think it is important for us to just more talk about the reality that we're living in right now, which is like
Hmm.
we are struggling and we are trying to figure it out. There's not one podcast or book from anyone where the person just has it all figured out.
I know. And that's
And
another
if
thing to
they
wrestle with
do, and
too.
we heard that, we would be like, I don't really want to listen to this. Like this, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like it would come off as super arrogant. Like, really? You
Yeah.
don't have any curiosity? You don't have
Yeah.
any like non-dual thinking going on in your mind?
There's nothing you can't answer. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
living in the tension is like uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
sometimes even in this mental health space, we want it to be like, no, man, this is what the diagnosis is, and this is what
Hmm.
it means.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you mean like a doctor in a room came up with that like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
hundred years ago, and
Right.
it's been tweaked like a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
it could mean something else, man.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's where God comes into play. I think
Hmm.
that's my journey. Like the Holy Spirit, God, I think there's something in there, but there's also other things as well, and that's where we have to kind of be learners,
Yeah,
And
man.
so I appreciate you taking the time today. We could definitely do part two, bro. Would love that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say in closing,
Yeah,
dude, if there is meaning, and it's kind of clear, like your purpose for right now, I think one of your biggest things is you. It's like, what is the purpose of you being bipolar? If to answer that, if I could say that, I think one of your the purpose of that was for you to start this podcast. Like that's
for
definitely
sure.
something that came out of it, and
Thank you. Yeah.
that's like it's right there. Like, okay, maybe there's meaning, maybe there's some good out of this. Maybe it's not just for no reason.
Well, all those years
So
of suffering up until I started it, I started in
yeah,
2019. I had 12
sure,
years of this and also stuff that was going on before I was 21, like stuff in my childhood, And so,
sure,
yeah,
sure, man. But you're a voice, and we're both a voice, and I think,
sure.
yeah, I'd love. I can literally talk about this stuff all day because
Yeah,
part of it is honestly like kind of therapy for me because I notice when I talk, uh, I get all these thoughts out. I get these intellectual trails that just go deep, and I like to just get it out, and it helps, and it actually makes me feel a little better. Like it makes me feel
for sure.
like getting that anxious energy out in a way. So yeah, man, I'd love to do a part two and be like a follow up guest down the
Yeah,
road
well, dude,
too.
I want to do a studio. I've talked about it for a while, and I
Mm,
got a spot where we can do it at my buddy's church, and I
cool.
just need to do it. I mean, I'm entering into a season of some new things with this job, but
It's
I'm
cool,
not
man.
giving up on the podcast. I'm not. It's going to change, and
Hmm.
we don't have to wait a ton of time. It's not like let's do it in a year.
Yeah, yeah,
But
I know. I get
yeah,
you.
maybe we could wait a little bit. Maybe wait a month
Sure.
or so, and then I'll get situated with this job, and then yeah, we can do it again, man. But
All right.
I'll let you know. I'll get this published probably, hopefully, this sometime before I start my job, which is next Monday. Just
Okay.
because I haven't put out an episode in a little bit, so I
No
gotta get
worries.
on that. But
No worries, man. That's cool.
mental health,
We'll talk about
that's
that.
it. Okay, cool. All right, brother. I'll let you go, man. Thank you for doing this, and
Oh
we'll be
yeah,
in touch. I'll
absolutely.
text you.
Thank you, Jared.
All right, brother. Love you, man. Have a good
You
Sunday.
too, brother. You
Okay.
too. Bye.